In the wake of Fallout 76's very large patch 22, Bethesda has continued the news cycle, sharing quite a few details around the game's future, and actually giving us a full-on roadmap as to what we can expect from Fallout 76 through the rest of 2020. And this actually includes some content delays slash change-ups. It's hard to tell exactly what's happening, but there's definitely a lot to talk about. We've also seen some other reactions or responses from Bethesda with some of the changes made in the most recent patch and how those will be somewhat getting modified in the future, so it's worth going over that too. If you guys enjoy the content, you can leave a like or get subscribed. I'm going to definitely have a lot more Fallout 76 content, probably covering everything I talk about in this video as far as stuff on the horizon. But with that said, let's first take a look at the new roadmap posted by Bethesda for Fallout 76, and this really comes in two forms. Firstly, they've edited their 2020 roadmap to now reflect what is actually happening in 2020, but further actually given us a more direct community calendar showing us what we can expect on a week-by-week basis. So first, taking a look at the larger 2020 roadmap overall, we've known for a little bit now that seemingly some parts of it were getting delayed. Bethesda did some interviews around QuakeCon and other summer events, and they mentioned how feature A or B was actually coming next year, but we never got a more official confirmation until now. So as far as new content on this roadmap, we're really focusing on Steel Dawn, which is the winter DLC. On the previous roadmap, there were two separate DLCs with the Brotherhood of Steel. In fall, we were meant to get Steel Dawn, and then later in winter, Fractured Steel. Seemed like Steel Dawn would be just a smaller questline, Fractured Steel the larger DLC experience, but Bethesda describes here how, after further discussion, we've decided that we would like the Brotherhood's return to Appalachia to be a larger moment for the game. As a result, we are combining Steel Dawn and Fractured Steel so you have more story quests to dig into at once. And reportedly, there'll be more details for them to share around this in the coming weeks, and likely in the next few weeks we'll know just about everything. That because the public test server will make a return and we'll have further details as to everything that's getting added via data mines or probably just playing it on the public test server. I actually made a pretty long video going over a lot of past data mines from the public test server, and it's a lot of Steel Dawn content, so I'll have that linked in the eye or the description if you want to check it out. So when the PTS returns, we'll probably find out a lot more, but also seemingly Bethesda will give us more over the next couple of weeks. I think a good way to handle this would actually to have articles go up in tandem with the PTS going live, so you get kind of an official source, but also some players can get their hands on. In addition, it'll be kind of weird now to see how a story DLC is handled going live in a public test server, assuming it actually does, considering they haven't said no or anything otherwise thus far. But I also find this combination of Steel Dawn and Fractured Steel to be pretty interesting, because is this the end of the Brotherhood of Steel? We know that at least in Steel Dawn, it's going to entail things like a basic companion, a few introductory quests into the Brotherhood of Steel. From the public test server right now, they are very introductory, but the last look we got from data mines was definitely incomplete, so perhaps with the next PTS update there'll be quite a bit more content and kind of more outside of the introductory. Like many of the quests were literally just meeting the new NPCs and doing a minor thing with them. There really wasn't a ton of questing at all in the files before, so I'll be pretty curious to see the size and scope of Steel Dawn now. Is it bigger because it's kind of combining two things? It has been described how this will be smaller than Wastelanders in the past. On this, we actually hear there'll be new quests, armor, and weapons, and also there will be a minor Brotherhood of Steel companion, not having a full quest line, but just some daily quests to complete. But then of course the bigger question, is this the entirety of the Brotherhood of Steel? Are we getting Steel Dawn, which is now a combination of Fractured Steel and Steel Dawn, and that's the DLC, that's the Brotherhood quest lines. The way it's talked about is how the Brotherhood of Steel is coming to Appalachia for a reason, in search of specific technologies, how there definitely is some kind of conflict and some drama we're going to find out about, and how there will be several exciting stories to explore. Definitely seems like a sizable amount of content. They've even discussed rolling it out over several patches in the past. So I do wonder if Steel Dawn and patch 24, which will introduce this, is just kind of the first look, but perhaps in 2021 we'll get even further looks into the Brotherhood of Steel in subsequent DLCs. I don't really know, but it definitely is interesting to see this bit of a switch up. Outside of that, of course, we also saw some other features move to 2021 and a confirmation of what's coming in 2020. We're getting camp shelters shelters in 2020, which we actually know quite a bit about thanks to past interviews, but expeditions, new daily ops, as well as perk loadouts are moving. Again, if you followed some of the interviews given recently, they've kind of mentioned a lot of that content was coming next year. But as far as what we are getting this year with camp shelters, these look really exciting. They basically have been described as vaults you can more or less build within your camp. So it'll have some kind of underground or interior portion so you can go in there, as well as other people can go in there, and you'll have way lighter building restrictions. You can create much cooler things in the build mode, intersect objects more, snapping rules are less, as well as actually build more overall than you could build in an exterior camp. So this will likely end up being a dream for builders and people who like exploring camps alike. I wasn't sure how big this would actually be, but on the community calendar, they actually show an image of a vault. Initially, I thought that was in reference to Vault 51 because we know that just got a no build zone with patch 22, but I think it might be more likely that it's actually in reference to camp interior vaults. And if you could build something that size, actually a vault scale structure, that'd be pretty crazy, but also pretty awesome. But I immediately wonder if a Fallout 76 server can handle 20 plus players building something that size, especially if several people go into the instances at the same time. But then with the community calendar, we get a very good idea as to everything we have coming out throughout the rest of this year. In just a few days, we're getting the second iteration of Meat Week. The Treasure Hunter event is making a return, this time for a weekend. They actually reworked this event, added a ton of additional rewards. Previously, it was not well liked because the rewards were crossovers or copies, but this time it's going to feel quite fresh, and there's a lot of cool stuff you could win here. So that's definitely something to look forward to in mid-October. And right around the same time, we do have the patch 23 release. It's not totally clear what exactly this will or won't be. It definitely seems like patch 23 is going to be a smaller one, bringing the content for the bombs drop event, which you can see next. Otherwise, not much is known about patch 23 and what it is or isn't bringing to the table. The bombs drop event looks interesting. This, of course, is celebrating the day the bombs dropped in Fallout 76. I suspect it'll be automated bombs dropping all around Appalachia. It'd be cool if there's a new boss tier enemy added somewhere, like a giant deathclaw you could fight if a bomb drops in the forest or some other region. But honestly, right now, we don't know much. There's been very little in the way of data mines. Bethesda themselves have barely ever mentioned it outside of these roadmaps. But then as you transition into November, December, you can see the Treasure Hunters return again, the 2-year anniversary of the game, a bunch of other minor things, the Holiday Scorched event making a return. It'll be interesting to see if they rework that one also, considering many of the drops from that were carried over with some other limited time events that we already got since it last year. And at some point in November to December, the Steel Dawn update with camp shelters will ship. So the introduction of the Brotherhood of Steel and its quest lines, including new weapons, armors, but also those camp shelters. So that November-December update is definitely going to be a large one. Patch 23 could have some interesting stuff coming next month, and actually just a month or so from now, but I'm honestly not sure what it is. And I think if anything, just doing some balance changes or even some bug fixing alone could be good for the game in the long term. And speaking of, we just recently saw some pushback against the recent patch 22 for Fallout 76. Most of this focused around the one wasteland change, making it so enemies will scale to your level. The big implication of this making it so a lot of otherwise mundane or low level enemies you may have encountered are now going to be pretty tough, which at points can be pretty frustrating. And one of the main reasons for this is due to how health and damage scale. And there's a great post or write-up on this, I'll have it linked down below, but more or less the post concludes that enemy health scales way faster than your damage. So even though early on you could one-shot enemies with relative ease, as you progress through the game and as enemies level up with you leveling up, because that's what one wasteland brings to the table, your weapon damage won't keep up with enemy health and it'll just become increasingly difficult to take down, more and more bullet spongy. And this is particularly frustrating around the mid-game if you're level 30, 40, predominantly because at this point you probably don't have a ton of great legendaries. Many people active in the legendary trading market have top tier legendaries, so 45 or 50, and it's just kind of an awkward time with the game where enemies are very tough, but you probably don't have appropriate damage to deal with them. And Bethesda actually agrees that perhaps with one wasteland this is becoming a little bit too tough, as they did describe how they're going to be adjusting things for characters in this mid-level range in the future. They'll be sharing additional details around this in future Inside the Vault articles, but even further, some hotfixes are planned to address this. Now specifically here, they have discussed mid-level characters. There's also been some pushback from higher level characters saying the game is just way harder now and it's frustrating. Even if you're level 200, if you don't have a super optimized build or a great legendary item, it can take a long time to take down even singular enemies now. And if you have 5 of them swarming you at once, that can get near impossible. It'll be interesting to see how this changes or evolves in the future, how Bethesda responds to it overall. I definitely think changing around some legendary effects or buffing other legendary effects outside of the main or meta ones would be a good healthy addition for the game. Although something else that's a healthy addition is daily ops. As I mentioned in my last video, day 1 of daily ops was, I think, way too frustrating, one of the most difficult combos, but now as we moved on to subsequent days, it's definitely a lot more fun and enjoyable and just easy. But Bethesda also shared some new details around where they hope to take daily ops in the future. They describe how right now Uplink is the first daily ops game mode, that being the only game mode you could do right now with daily ops, and this one has a theme of kind of holding and securing checkpoints and clearing out a bunch of enemies along the way. But it's particularly bad for stealthy characters or sniper characters because there's a ton of enemies, and also stealth doesn't work during the game mode due to the unique effect all enemies have with heightened perception. But they do mention how in future game modes they actually hope to emphasize that character or playstyle more. So in the next game mode, there'll be an emphasis on stealth and sniper gameplay with stronger enemies but fewer of them overall. Also, they'll have a different default mutation. It seems like they're planning one default mutation for each game mode. Uplink has piercing gauge, so stealth doesn't work, but the next one will have a different one. And they want to make it so different players feel like the hero of the day with these game modes. So it'll mesh really well or really badly with certain builds. And personally, I really like this. I think it's a good way to balance daily ops, especially as there's several game modes swapping on a daily basis, so you'll have a lot more variety in which builds are useful. And they also mention expanding it to other dungeons. They want every dungeon they add to support all of the applicable game modes they create for this, but they're looking at adding it to West Tech, the Wendigo Cave, as well as the Watoga Civic Center, that very memorable location that you probably experienced in Wastelanders. A few other bugs to pop up with this patch. There's actually that level spam bug that you may have seen some of my videos from the public test server. Some people are getting this. After leveling up in the season, you'll just get a spam of every level. So if you're level 50, it'll literally go through 1 to 50 every single one. It's very annoying, very frustrating. The weight bench, which was a season reward giving you unlimited bonus strength, was actually temporarily disabled, or at least the bonus was. You can still use it and you can still unlock it, but it won't actually give you any strength now. It seems like Bethesda messed up and accidentally made creatures in Nuclear Winter quite a bit tougher. Nuclear Winter has separate balancing, but due to the nerf in the chain from multiplicative to additive damage, weapons in Nuclear Winter do less damage against creatures now. So some of the boss tier enemies are just ridiculously hard to take down now or take a lot of bullets. There's been some rumors of a new vending glitch to pop up, wherein some of your items will be accidentally put for sale in your in-game vending machines. It's really all based on one Reddit thread. It hasn't been substantiated with any proof yet. I haven't seen any further clarification on whether it's real or fake. So though there are some claims right now, it's definitely something worth taking with a grain of salt, because Reddit likes to spread unsubstantiated rumors and many times end up being false. But either way, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this one. As always, again, I thank you all for watching. Hopefully you found this video informative. We got a pretty nice layout as to what's coming next for Fallout 76, what the rest of the year will look like. And I'm really excited for this Brotherhood questline. I'm curious to see how big it's actually going to be, because we just don't know yet. Smaller than Wastelanders, but that doesn't really say much. And what we have on the public test server right now is pretty clearly incomplete. As always, again, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.